Good morning, you handsome lot. We have got a little Peugeot 3008 from 2014 to 2018. I don't know the specific year because it is on a private plate. Now this vehicle has been booked in with me for a timing belt and water pump replacement. Now these little DV6s, if you're starting out doing cam belting and you're an apprentice, this is probably going to be one of the easiest engines you can do a timing belt on. Now we all know by now that my preferred timing belt kit is INA Schaeffler. First things first, let's disconnect the battery. Now just have a little look to see how much room we've got here. So basic, you haven't even got to take the header tank off. The engine mount to get out of the way, it's just so basic. I love these. These are brilliant engines, absolutely brilliant. Let's move around now to the upper timing cover. There's 4 7mm holding it on, 2 T30s by there holding this little metal bracket. Now I have just undone these little clips holding the wiring loom that goes over the top of it, just so you can wiggle it out. Now also, remove this rear engine mount bolt, which is a T50, which will enable you to get straight onto that one there. We need to get this engine now timed up, just to show you. That hole there, and the camshaft pulley, has got to be aligned up with that hole there and the cylinder head. Now we are going to be using my favourite Peugeot timing tools. Now on majority of timing belt jobs you do need to remove the driver's side front wheel. Now a lot of these cars now have got these fancy little plastic caps on the wheel caps. Now what I like to use is these little pliers by Surdoff, that little cutout on the end. Now these are an ultimate universal tool, they are brilliant, and they pull them caps off absolutely effortless. Right, let's get this wheel off. Now with that wheel off we need to remove the inner wheel arch, and going back to them pliers, they're also good for doing these little trim clips. Absolutely insane. Now with them all out of the way, we should be able to pull that wheel arch liner back just and mount it the other side of the hub to give us access to the crankaroonie. Right, now with everything out of the way, there is a plastic cover with 2 10s that goes by here. We just need to remove it, give us access to the crankshaft sensor plug. We need to just tuck that out of the way. Now there is some little clips that we need to remove off the timing cover. Be careful with them because we don't want things breaking. Pretty much now we can drop the car down and get the engine mount off the vehicle. Right, now with that vehicle dropped back down, we can get ourselves a nice little jack, block of wood underneath the sump because we don't want to be damaging it. And then we can move around now to the upper engine mount. I've got it right this time. I've done about 4 outtakes calling this a timing mount. Oh, can't get my words out today whatsoever. Removed all the T50s and we can just wiggle it out of the way. And then put it there on the floor, nice and safe. Make sure that you put all the bolts in so you know exactly where they go and you're not losing any. Now we need to remove the second half of the upper timing mount, which will give us lots more access to everything, and that is just 4/16s. And again, put it to one side with the nuts and bolts in it so you're not losing things. Now let's move around to getting the alternator belt off. Now I have got a little tool, again by Surdoff, which looks a little bit like that. It slides over that little by there, and we can get a 15mm aviation spanner, a long one. More leverage the better. And we can get that belt. Can I do it while holding the camera one-handed? I don't know, but we will. Give it a go. Yeah, there we go. That now is one alternator belt off, and we can let that tensioner go. We don't need to take it off. Leave it go because we can now get the access to the plastic timing cover. Right, well I am now at a position where I need to take this vehicle up in the air, but before we do, this timing mark, we're going to make sure that this tool slots in there nice and simple. Can you see the cutout? in the head there. Can I zoom in? If that pin doesn't go in there nice and smoothly, you need to get it adjusted so it does go in nice. Now, this is another question where I get asked all the time: how do I take these cars up in the air with the engine mounts off? Well, I'm going to show you, and it involves a little bit of wood. I have to swap the cameras with the hands now, and what I do is plonk it in between the subframe and the dry shaft, and then we can lower it down, and that now, we'll pull my jack out, and that engine now is fully supported, so we can take it up in the air. How good is that? Now let's move round now to the crank pulley itself, and we're going to get the Milwaukee, put it on number 3 because you want all the power as possible. We're going to get on that crank bolt now, back it off. So they're not very tight, these, at all. And then that pulley is off. We don't need to be too careful with this because there's nothing timing related on the back end of this whatsoever. Right, now with that crank pulley off, we can get our timing pin into the crank itself, and there's a little hole, again, goes through the reluctor ring, the pickup ring, into the block itself, and it should slide in beautifully. Now what I do like to do on these, well, you must do really, take the crankshaft sensor off, but be extra careful with it because you don't want to damage it. If you do damage it, or the vehicle might not start, it might not start, so just be extra careful with these. And then we can go ahead, once everything's out of the way, and remove this lower timing cover. Right, now with that timing cover off, as you can see, all the pins are in. Now the fuel pumps on these, even though they are common rail, some people say, oh, they don't need timing. They do need timing, but you can do it without putting the pin in, which I will try and show you now. What I like to do is put a little, I don't know where I can show you. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? A little, I can't do it, hang on. Right, well that's a little bit better. What I like to do is put a little yellow mark underneath the pulley to the block itself. Now if I can just get my mirror and show you, there is a pin that you can put in. Can I show you? If you focus on that mirror, you can see that little hole, and there is a little notch in the fuel pump pulley for it. But you know what, I've done that many of them, I don't put the pin in. Please, if you're going to do it, make sure you put your pin in. I don't, like I said, I've had a lot of experience with these where I've never used the pin. As long as that mark lines up, it's going to be perfect. Right, let's get now, spin it around, 13mm on the tensioner, and get this belt off. And just like that, with a little bit of magic, that timing belt is off, and it does look in good condition if you ask me. There's not much cracking in it. Now this car has only done 41,000 miles. Now let's move round to removing the water pump. We're going to get, you know by now, my little receptacle so we can catch all this water. Now what I like to do with these water pumps is remove all the bolts and leave one in, just so it's not like popping off and gushing everywhere, because there's nothing worse than having water and coolant everywhere. Absolutely horrendous. Just make it a couple of minutes now and this will all be drained out all lovely. Now while I'm waiting for that coolant to drain out, I've gone ahead and we've removed the tensioner and also the idler pulley. Now let's go ahead now and unbox the goods. Now we all know by now that my preferred belt is a shuffler kit. In the box we've got the timing belt, a nice little sticker to put on the bonnet, brand new tensioner, new idler, a new crank bolt, and also brand new water pump and gasket. Now the amount of times that I change water pumps, and they've been changed previously and people use silicone on these gaskets, you do not need to use silicone, because if you do, it doesn't look very good, and chances are it's probably going to void your warranty as well. Now another thing that I do like about Schaeffler as well, there is an app you can download which gives you the opportunity to scan the QR code on the box and you can claim points, which I'm going to do right now. I claim my points. How many points have I got for that? 300. And not only that, that QR code will then also give you all the information and the fitting instructions that you need to fit this belt. How good is that? It's brilliant. And there we have it, that water pump is now off, and if you have a little look down the bottom there, it has been weeping ever so slightly. The customer has been complaining of water loss. We're not worried about it, but it was caught just in time. Now, before we mount this new water pump, we need to clean this area down, and how I like to do it was a little bit of 3M Scotch pad and get it nice and shiny. Right, well I've gone ahead now and put the brand new water pump on, and we need to get it torqued up to 9 Newton meters. Now if I just show you this, watch this, that is it. That's not very tight at all, but technical instructions are technical instructions at the end of the day. Now with everything torqued up, give everything now a nice cleaner-oonie with a little bit of brake and clutch cleaner. Now I've also gone ahead, put the new idler on here and torqued that up to, what was it, 37 Newton meters. Right, now while all this is drying, we're going to get the tensioner put back on, and then we can get the belt routed. I've just put that belt on now, but I've had to drop the car down just to route it over the camshaft to make sure that everything is on all the pulleys, which it is perfect. We can take it back up in the air now and get it tensioned up. Right, well I have run into a problem, and I would rather be honest and straight with you rather than, because that's what I am, I'd rather be straight. Now, the timing belt kit and water pump which I had delivered, which is my preferred timing belt kit, is Schaeffler INA. But however, now I don't know whether the water pump have been boxed up wrong, but the timing belt, the teeth on the water pump were just slightly smaller than the gap on the teeth on the timing belt, and I wasn't happy with it. I will attach a little clip for you to see here. So I've been on the phone to my supplier and I can't get one until tomorrow, but I am not here tomorrow because I am at the NEC in Birmingham, the UK Garage and Body Shop. But what I've done, I've had to put a Gates belt on it, but we're not worried because it's on and it's all timed up and tensioned up correctly. Now we all run into problems. This is the part of the motor trade that nobody sees, but yeah, not to worry. Crisis averted. Is that the correct word for it? I do not know. But what we're going to do now is put this timing cover back on, put the crank pulley on, spin the engine over. Now with that timing cover and crank pulley back on, I get asked all the time is how I torque them up. Now obviously the crank's got to be locked, but if you just come at the back here, I use a good, well, snap-on screwdriver and lock between the teeth on the flywheel and the actual gearbox housing itself, and that is more than enough to keep that engine locked while you get not so much the Newton meters but the torque angle on the bolts. Was it 35 Newton meters and then 190 degrees, but that crank bolt now is all torqued up to spec-a-rooney. We've just got to do a few little bits now and then we can drop the car back down. Right, well I've dropped the vehicle back down now. We're just going to pull this pin out the camshaft, and it should, if everything's been done right, pull it out nice and easy. Now what I like to do is put some reference marks on the camshaft pulley, timing cover, and also the crank pulley, and on the timing cover as well. I don't know whether you can see it down there. 2 little yellow marks. What I'm going to do now is jump on, need to adjust my camera, get me 18mm now on the crank, and we can wind this engine over and make sure that nothing's locking up and everything is aligning back up correctly. We're all coming back round now, and that is absolutely bang on. Right, now once I'm happy with everything, we can all put everything back together. I'm not going to bore you and chat to you explaining how it goes back together, because it is just the reverse procedure of what you've taken it apart. Right, let's get it all back together. As you can see, this vehicle now is all put back together. Now, because we've drained all the coolant out of the system, we have to put fresh back in it. And what I'm using is my coolant and vacuum and refill system. This is brilliant. Universal tool that'll fit pretty much everything on the market. Get an airline to it, pull a vacuum on it, just into the yellow there. Make sure you've got the correct coolant in it. Flick the switch, and that now will fill that system. Can we come around here? Perfectly. Now that vehicle now is pretty much finished. Obviously I've got the trims and I've put back together, but I like to do that while the vehicle's ticking over. But what we're going to do is get on the key and give it a big start. I'm going to need this to put me bar on the clutch. We'll get it a big start. There we go. Absolutely perfect. Right, now with that car ticking over, I'm going to let it run, let the engine get up to temperature, and make sure the cooling fans are coming in and we haven't got any problems. But in the meantime, I'm going to put all this trim back together, and it is also having a oil and filter which I've already replaced. While I was waiting for that other belt to turn up, I drained the oil out of it, put a new oil filter in it. I've got the air filter to change, a fuel filter, and basically do the rest of a bit of a service, go around it, make sure. But I think we're going to need some rear discs and pads on it as well at some point. So we're going to be advising the customer on that. Right, now I've put all them trims back together, we've got the vehicle up in the air. We're going to go around all the suspension and steering, braking components, tyres, everything underneath the vehicle, even the condition of the exhaust. And, you know, just make sure everything is in tip-top condition. Now I have noticed that the tyres are wearing on the inside, but the main thing is we've got no leaks up by that timing cover, which is a good thing. There you go, that car now is all finished. We've given everywhere a little bit of a wiperoonie. If we just jump inside the car now. All the lights are off, service light's been reset, and as I said before, this vehicle has done 41,000 miles. Now, that is pretty much me for the day. I'm going to take the car down the road now for a bit of a test drive, make sure that everything's okay. We've got our advisories to go on our service sheet. But yeah, I am going over for the next 2 days to the NEC in Birmingham, so yeah, it's going to be a good couple of days. Hopefully I'm going to make some more content with a few more YouTubers and TikTokers, well, all the lads that get together on the social media, you know. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video, and we'll see you with car repairs on Friday. Anyway, let's get it sent.